Hi everyone, my name is Adam Odell. I'm a composer, pianist, teacher, writer, and comedian. And today I'm going to do something that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I've had a lot of friends who've been contacting me about music auditions, or auditioning specifically for music schools. We're at the beginning of February, and so we're coming up on a lot of time for people to audition for programs for the fall. And so I've had friends who've asked me, and I've also had people who've reached out through the YouTube channel who've been asking me for tips on that. So I thought I'd just go ahead and make a video. So, since this is a little bit weird for me, I've been watching other YouTubers make those sort of, list videos of advice where you could just, learn everything you're supposed to know in 10 minutes, and so, I think this is the part where I just put in some stock music and some random B-roll. So, here we go. While audition requirements will vary from school to school, most auditions have three major parts. 1, the performance, 2, the interview, and 3, the tests. The first thing to consider with all three of these is practice. And of course, we know this as musicians, you're really supposed to practice, but the way that we go about practicing can sometimes get a little off, and that's the thing that's really important, is not necessarily that you practice, but how you practice. So, when it comes to the auditions and the interviews, that means that you should practice in front of a mirror, or even better yet, on camera. It's really good to be able to record your auditions, record what you would be like in an interview, practice answers to questions that might come up regularly, and then go back and watch the video and ask yourself how you did. Now, the thing is, it can be really awkward to watch yourself on video. Trust me. But it's that kind of stuff that's really, really important. Being able to sort of look at yourself as a third person and being able to say, okay, I'm now watching myself and I'm focusing on watching myself rather than focusing on watching myself while I'm also doing the thing that I'm doing. Having that ability to be a third person, to be sort of an outside critic for yourself, is one of the quickest ways to learn and one of the quickest ways to improve. So typically speaking, when schools have entrance exams for their auditions, they will probably have some sort of material online where you can go to study. They might have entire practice exams that resemble what you'll take on the day of your audition, or they might have just study guides or general ideas of this is what we're focused on when you're taking the test. And that leads me to my next point. Every school is different, they can all offer you different things, and because of that, it's really important to audition as if you're auditioning specifically for that school, rather than just a school. Are they more interested in canon between 1700 and 1850? Are they more interested in 20th century and contemporary techniques? Is there a big early music component? Are they really focused on performance, or is there also a big scholarship element to what they do? Check these things out, because that can really inform the repertoire that you use in an audition, the things that you prepare, essentially more or less with the given time that you have. That's the kind of stuff that's really going to make you stand out, is really knowing who these people are that you're auditioning for. Have questions ready for them. Do some research on what this school is, again, why you're interested in being there, and then ask them questions about those things. Ask them the questions specific to their school, about the programs that they advertise, that they offer, and make sure that it's something that you're really interested in, because one, that's going to be really important for getting a specific idea of what you want from that school, but it also shows that you have interest, and that's really important to them, because they're not just trying to bring in only good students, whatever those are. They're trying to make sure they're finding students that are good for their program. So a lot of people give the advice, don't sweat the small stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you, you should kind of sweat the small stuff. What I mean by that is, in each of your three main components of your audition, the performance, the interview, and the tests, there are going to be things that maybe you didn't really think of, and I wanted to point out just a few of the common missteps that people make when they've really, really prepared something, but then they completely forget to get something that's really important, but really not all that hard, comparatively speaking. For instrumentalists, that means have your scales ready. It seems like a lot of times people will come into auditions and they will absolutely nail their piece, they will absolutely nail everything else, but then they are asked to play a scale and they just completely fumble it. And it's not because they're incapable of doing so, it's just they don't practice it very often, but that is something that schools ask for a lot. It's just show us your fundamentals, show us the rudiments. For vocalists, Have your translations ready. Sometimes you will go into an audition where somebody really kills it and they sing everything beautifully, but then you'll be asked what a word means and you will come up completely short, and that shows that you haven't really put in the time to get the character down. So make sure that you have your translations, because vocal professors want those. And for my fellow composers, that means be ready to talk about your piece in detail about the things other than just the program notes. Oftentimes we're prepared for one or two things about the piece. Either what the process was to create it, or what the major emotional implication of the piece is, or something like that. But we often don't think about the things that our prospective professors might be interested in. What was something that you tried in that piece that was new to you? Did it work out? Why did it work out? Did it not work out? Why didn't it work out? What did you learn from writing that piece that is going to make it into the next piece that you write? Being able to show not only who you are artistically in the way that you present things, but also in the way that you go about being a student and really getting into the praxis of composition will be an important thing in your interview. Okay, now I'm going to put my pianist hat on. This isn't a hat, it's just a book. Auditionees often don't realize this, but staff pianists can be just as important to the process of audition and acceptance as the professors are. So first things first, have a binder ready for the pianist. Have all of your music in it in an order that makes sense, and you want to have it hole-punched, double-sided, clean copies, legible. You want to mark in all of the important spots, like where you're taking tempo changes, or where fermati are, or where caesuras are. And you want to be able to communicate that information as quickly and effectively as possible. Also, when working with the staff pianist, make sure that you're maintaining a good balance of leadership and collaboration. Because this is your audition, and it really should be based on the artistic vision that you have of the piece and the way that you're comfortable performing it. But you're still working with a real live human who has their own expertise, and chances are probably more expertise than you. So you should have an idea of what your performance should look like. You should have what your mood is, what your tempo is, of course, what you're generally trying to get out of the piece. But then from there, make sure that it's really a process where you're in conversation and working with each other, because not only is that going to show that you're somebody who's good to work with, it's always just going to create a better performance in general. So earlier I talked about why it's important to know who the school is. But it's also important to know who you are. And so this leads me to my most important point. Be authentic to who you are. Be authentic to yourself. And yeah, that sounds a little cheesy, but bear with me here. It's important to know what you want to get out of a program. Why is it that you're applying to this school specifically? What is it that you want to perform or be able to do? Do you want to be able to teach? What are your goals? And then how is that school going to help you achieve those goals? Is it that studying with this person will bring you into this style that you were really interested in? Will studying with this person or having this program provide the experiences that you need to get to that next level? And hey, if you don't have an answer to those questions, that's fine. Talk about how you want to answer them. Talk about why it is you think you could answer those questions at this institution. At the end of the day, these teachers aren't looking for somebody who's already perfect, because otherwise there's not really anything to teach. The important thing is to be teachable. And what that means is show that you have goals. Show that you want to be able to do something with this. Show that you are somebody who they can work with. Show that you're somebody who's caring and compassionate and hardworking. Show that you'd be a good addition to their studio, and they'll want you. Okay, so here's a bit of a personal confession, and I know it's probably going to surprise you. I'm awkward and anxious as a person. So, sort of being that awkward, anxious person, knowing that I needed to sort of let that stuff go before I went into auditions or interviews, I learned a trick that has stuck with me for a while called the line trick. So here's how the line trick works. Before you walk into the room where you're going to be doing your audition or your interview, just take your foot and draw an imaginary line on the ground. Then, on your side of the line, imagine that you're leaving all of the things that make you perform worse on that side of the line. In my case, it's how I think about how I'm so awkward, or that I often get too into my own head. So just leave all of the anxiousness and the awkwardness, or whatever it is for you, on that side of the line, and then walk to the other side of the line. So who knows? Maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. It definitely works for me, so I just wanted to take a second to show you. Something that a former faculty member at my undergrad told me that really stuck with me was that the people who are interviewing you, they're probably nervous too. And we often don't think about that because we often think like, oh man, this person has more degrees than me, they have more experience than me, and so we think, oh, they don't necessarily want me, I'm just kind of here, right? And that kind of attitude can actually be a little bit destructive, just in terms of your own self-esteem, but then also it can be a little bit inaccurate because at the end of the day, while these might be really esteemed professors, they also want to make sure that they have all of the best students that they possibly can. And so sometimes they can be nervous to show that this is a school that you would want to attend. So even if that's not the case, which most of the time it will be the case, taking that pressure off yourself and making yourself focus on making the other person comfortable is a really good technique because when you take the pressure off of yourself, you sort of naturally relax in the first place. And while it might just kind of be me, I've often found that if you can make somebody laugh, that doesn't hurt.
Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh.
Alright, and then a couple of quick tips that people forget about for some reason, even though they are incredibly obvious. Get plenty of sleep before you go. Drink water. Eat food. If you're about to go into a long session, go to the bathroom first. If you're auditioning on video and aren't physically there for the audition week or whatever it might be, pretend that it's in person. Dress the part, look the part, act the part. Okay, actually, finally, I know I've said a lot of things, and oftentimes that gets us really worked up into, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I need to remember. But if I can really sum it down into one final thing, it's just prepare as much as you can before you get there. And then once you're there, just let it be. If there's something you're not prepared for, if there's something you're nervous about, at that point, it doesn't really matter. Just be yourself. Relax as much as you can, and try to enjoy the process. Alright, that's everything from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have other ideas, tips, and tricks that you've learned from your own auditions, leave them in the comment section down below so that anybody who's still looking for more advice might be able to get a little help, and we can have a little dialogue in the comment section. Link in the description is my Patreon page and my Teespring store where you can monetarily support the work I do here on this channel. You can also check out links for the music that I create. And otherwise, thank you guys so much. Thank you, of course, as always, to my Patreons for supporting what I do. And yeah, happy audition season.